There is a crow sitting somewhere near your home right now, maybe on a wire above the street, maybe on the roof of a building you pass every morning without thinking, maybe perched silently in the tree at the edge of your yard, still as a statue, watching the door you just walked out of. And here is the thing most people never realize. It has seen you before. Not just today, not just this week. That crow has been watching you for months, cataloging the way you walk, the route you take, the time you leave, the expression on your face. It has built a profile of you that is more detailed than you might be comfortable knowing. You thought it was just a bird. It wasn't. Most of us move through the world assuming we are the ones doing the watching. We glance at pigeons, we notice sparrows. We point at hawks and feel a small thrill of nature entering our ordinary day. We are the observers. The birds are the scenery. But somewhere in the last few decades, researchers began uncovering something that quietly shattered that comfortable assumption. The crows were watching back. They had been watching back the entire time. And what they were doing with that information, what they were storing, sharing, and passing down, is something that will permanently change the way you look at every dark bird you ever encounter again. In 2006, a researcher at the University of Washington named John Marsluff conducted an experiment that, at the time, seemed almost too strange to be taken seriously. He put on a caveman mask, a rubber prehistoric human face, and he walked through the university campus trapping crows. Just that, trapping them, tagging them for research, releasing them unharmed. Then he put the mask away and went back to his ordinary life. But the crows did not forget. For years after that single trapping event, every time a researcher wore that same mask anywhere near the campus, crows would appear. Not from just the trees nearby, but from all across the area. Diving, scolding, screaming, mobbing the masked figure with a fury that stunned the scientists watching. The crows had never forgotten the face. But here is the detail that changes everything. Many of the crows who showed up to scold the mask had never been trapped. They had never personally experienced anything that mask had done. And yet they knew. They knew it was dangerous. They knew to be afraid. Someone had told them. That realization, that crows do not just remember, but teach, opened a door that researchers have been walking through ever since, and what they have found behind it is extraordinary. Crows do not simply recognize human faces the way a dog might recognize a familiar scent. They distinguish individual people with a precision that is genuinely unsettling when you sit with it. In studies, crows were shown to identify specific individuals even when those people changed their clothing, changed their hairstyle, wore hats, walked differently. The crow was not reading your outfit. It was reading you. Something in the geometry of your face, the particular way you carry yourself, the unconscious rhythm of your movement through space. The crow builds an internal portrait that is specific enough to follow you across time, across seasons, across an entire year of your life passing by without you knowing you were being studied. And that portrait gets shared. Researchers discovered that crow families and crows live in complex, multi-generational family structures, pass down this information the way human communities pass down warnings about dangerous people or trustworthy neighbors. The parent crows teach the juvenile crows. The juveniles grow up already knowing which humans in the neighborhood are safe and which ones are threats. Crows that have never interacted with you personally will already have an opinion about you, formed entirely from what they have been told by birds who have watched you for months. You have a reputation in the crow community. You have always had one. The question is simply whether you ever thought to wonder what it says. But why? Why would a bird develop this level of complexity around human recognition? This is where the science moves into something almost philosophical. Crows did not always live beside us the way they do now. For most of their evolutionary history, they were forest birds, intelligent, opportunistic, adapted to reading the complex social dynamics of other animals. But somewhere in the long story of human civilization, crows made a choice that almost no other animal made with such deliberate success. They moved into our world. They studied us the way we might study a new country we intended to live in permanently. They watched our behavior, learned our patterns, mapped our movements, and discovered what might be one of the most important survival insights any animal has ever developed, that not all humans are the same, that some will feed you, some will ignore you, some will harm you, and the ability to tell the difference, instantly, reliably, across seasons and years and generations, is the difference between thriving in a human landscape and failing in it. The crow's intelligence did not develop despite living near humans. It developed because of us. We were the pressure that forged them. Here is something that might feel slightly strange to imagine. The crow sitting near your home has likely already decided something about you. It has watched you enough mornings to know your rhythms. It noticed the day you rushed past without looking up. It noticed the day you paused, looked at the sky, seemed somehow different. It registered the time you walked out of your house, and there was something about your posture, something tight, something uncertain, that the crow filed away in a memory that will outlast your ability to remember that morning at all. Crows have been shown to remember specific humans for 5 years, possibly longer. They grieve. They play. They plan for futures they cannot yet see. They hold funerals, gathering in large, silent groups around dead crows, not eating, not moving, studying what happened so they can learn from it. They live inside a version of time that is far more textured than we ever assumed birds could inhabit. And inside that time, you are a recurring character. Researchers at Cambridge, at the University of Auckland, across institutions in Japan and across North America, have independently documented something that keeps appearing in crow research, like a theme that refuses to disappear. Crows respond to kindness, not in the abstract, sentimental way we might project onto an animal we want to feel connected to. In a specific, documented, behaviorally measurable way, crows who are treated well by specific humans will, over time, begin to leave things for those humans. Gifts, buttons, pieces of glass, a screw, a small stone, objects selected with what appears to be deliberate intention and left in places where that particular human will find them. A girl in Seattle named Gabby Mann began feeding the crows in her neighborhood when she was 4 years old. By the time she was 8, they were bringing her things. Earrings, a small piece of metal shaped almost like a heart, pieces of blue glass, a lens cap her mother had dropped and lost on a walk, which the crows returned to her feeder 2 days later. Scientists are careful with the word gift. They prefer object exchange or reciprocal behavior. The language of science wants precision. But the girl kept a collection, and every object in it came from birds that had decided she was worth knowing. And here is where the story becomes something harder to categorize. Crow intelligence has been measured against the intelligence of great apes. In certain cognitive tests, tests of reasoning, of tool use, of planning for the future, of understanding cause and effect, crows perform at levels that leave researchers visibly unsettled. In one experiment, crows were presented with a problem that required them to use one tool to retrieve a second tool that could then be used to retrieve food. A sequence, a plan, an understanding that the first action was not about immediate reward, but about setting up a future state. Most animals cannot do this. Many young children cannot do this. The crow solved it. What is happening inside a brain the size of a walnut that produces behavior that rivals the cognitive performance of animals with brains thousands of times larger? Neuroscientists have been sitting with this question for over a decade, and what they have found is quietly revolutionary. Crows do not have a cerebral cortex, the thick, folded structure that in mammals is associated with complex thought. For most of scientific history, this was taken as evidence that birds could not be truly intelligent. Cortex equals cognition, the thinking wit. No cortex, no deep thinking. But the crow's brain does something else. It uses a different architecture, densely packed neurons arranged in a way that achieves similar functional outcomes through an entirely different path. The crow built its own version of intelligence, from different materials, following different blueprints, arriving at a place that looks startlingly like ours from the inside. 2 completely separate lines of evolution. 2 completely separate brain structures. The same result. What does that tell you about the nature of intelligence itself? The crow outside your window did not find its way to your street by accident. Urban crows select territories with care. They assess food availability, safety, the behavior of the human community around them, the presence of trustworthy people who might provide. They weigh risk and reward across time horizons that stretch across seasons. They choose, and once they choose, they stay. They raise their young in the territory they have selected. They teach those young the particular knowledge of that particular place, which humans feed, which ones shoo, which ones walk too fast to notice, which ones always pause to look up. Your neighborhood has a crow history that existed long before you moved into it, and it will continue long after you are gone. The crows will remember the humans who lived in your house before you. They are already forming their assessments of you. You are living inside a story you did not know was being written. There is a moment that birding researchers sometimes describe, a moment that seems to happen eventually to almost everyone who spends serious time studying crows. The moment when you realize the crow is not looking at you the way a sparrow might glance at a passing shadow. The crow is looking at you the way another person looks at you across a room. Something is home in there. Something is evaluating. Something is deciding what to do next based on a calculation that involves you specifically and everything it has already learned about you and what it expects you to do next. The experience of being truly seen by an animal is not something most people know how to hold. It does not fit into the category of nature. It does not fit into the comfortable distance we keep between ourselves and the other minds sharing this planet. It opens something. Researchers who study crow cognition often speak carefully about consciousness, about whether crows are aware in a meaningful sense, whether there is something it is like to be a crow perceiving the world. The science is honest about its limits here. We do not have instruments for measuring the interior life of another mind. We may never have them, but the behavior keeps piling up. The memory, the teaching, the grief, the planning, the recognition, the gifts, the funerals, the games, the demonstrated ability to imagine futures that have not yet arrived. And it becomes harder and harder to look at a crow, truly look, the way it is looking at you, and feel entirely comfortable in the assumption that there is nothing significant happening behind those black eyes. They have been here longer than almost everything you have ever built. They watch civilizations rise and fall while perched on the edges of things. They have adapted to every landscape humanity has ever created. They live in forests, in cities, in deserts, in Arctic cold. They are everywhere we are, always have been, watching from the periphery of every human story ever lived. The crow on the wire above your street this morning is not a footnote to your day. You are a chapter in its memory. And maybe that is the thing worth sitting with. We move through the world leaving impressions we do not know we are leaving. We move through the world being remembered by minds we do not think to include in the story of our lives. Every morning we walk outside and step into a network of attention we never asked for and never noticed, a living, distributed intelligence built over generations, watching the neighborhood, reading the humans, passing down what it knows. The crow knows what you look like from above. It knows your routine better than you consciously know it yourself. It has shared what it knows with its family. Their children will inherit it. There is a version of your life that exists entirely in the memory of birds. And here is the quiet, almost unbearable beauty of that. They have never judged you for anything you achieved or failed to achieve. They do not know your name, your job, your worries, your regrets. They know only how you move through the world. Whether you are gentle or careless, whether you pause or rush, whether you notice them or walk past like they are furniture in your life. In the crow's record of you, you are only ever exactly what you are. The next time you step outside and see a crow watching you from a wire, consider this: that bird may have been watching you for longer than your most recent memory of it. You are already known. The question that remains, the one only you can answer, is what kind of character you have been in the story it has been quietly writing. If you have ever had a moment with a crow that stopped you, a look that lasted too long, A sound that seemed directed specifically at you, or something left somewhere that made you wonder. I want to hear it. Tell me what happened.